All right. Welcome to the live stream, everyone. Today we're going to talk about how narcissists are allergic to accountability. You might have seen I did a short about this the other day, but my name is Jared Mello, the wizard of radical self-respect and the shepherd of black sheep. The point of these live streams is to have a bit of a longer video and also give people an opportunity to do some Q&A, etc., build some community, get people to have other people to talk to that are going through something similar. That's something that's pretty priceless, if you ask me. But narcissists, if you didn't know already, and if you follow me, you already knew this, but they are allergic to accountability. And whenever you try to hold them accountable on something, which is not something you're going to be able to do, and we're going to go over that in a minute, but if you ever try to bring up one of their problematic behaviors, then they're going to break out in all sorts of excuses, Darvo, gaslighting, lying, playing the victim, moving the goalposts, rage, anger, you name it. They're going to do something to get the attention off of their problematic behaviors. And this is something that makes a healthy relationship with them impossible. Because in any kind of good partnership, any kind of good team situation, you're going to be able to talk to each other about things. You're going to be able to collaborate, problem solve. And it's not always going to feel like a battle if you have a difficult conversation. But with narcissists, that's not how it goes. With narcissists, it's going to feel like a battle. It's going to feel like you versus them. And it's going to feel like you don't have the same goals because you don't have the same goals. The narcissist wants to win. The narcissist wants to control. The narcissist wants to come out on top and get their way. And don't get it twisted. They'll be really ridiculous to get those things. Hello there, Ellie. To do that, they'll be petty. They'll be ridiculous. They'll be childish. They'll do things that sounds untrue. But no, it's actually true. And I'd mentioned before about how we can't hold a narcissist accountable. What we can do is enforce consequences. And that doesn't require the narcissist to adhere, because if we enforce consequences, maybe that means we walk away. And that's the consequence. And we block them on everything. Nothing they can do about that. Now, if it's a co-parenting situation, a family situation where it's not possible, or you're financially dependent on one, that's a different story. But for the most part, the consequences are on us to try to enforce. And granted, narcissists will try to fight it sometimes. Narcissists will try to go kicking and screaming. And if you try to have boundaries, they'll see it as a challenge to try to control you more. Because your boundaries, that's what they are. They're a threat to narcissist control over you. It's one of the reasons they don't like them. And if you can have boundaries, you're not going to be able to be controlled as easily. And that's one of the reasons narcissists don't like them at all. So all of those things a narcissist will do, people really have to understand that this is true. Narcissists will be allergic to accountability. And there is no EpiPen for this. There is no Benadryl to take. For them, they're just going to break out in these excuses and whatever else. And then we have to act accordingly. And what I see people really mess up a lot is they'll try to act like the narcissist is a normal person. This person is doing all of these toxic things. They're spreading smear campaigns. They're flipping the script. They're using Darvo, deny, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. They're moving the goalposts, telling you to get over it. It's in the past. Let bygones be bygones. Sweep it under the rug. And you have to accept if that's what they're doing, you're not going to be able to have a healthy relationship with them, whether it's a romantic relationship, a relationship with a family member. At best, what can happen is the depth of that relationship is very shallow. And maybe you're not no contact, but you've extremely limited the contact. And you do that maybe because, you think maybe it's better than nothing. But I would tell people they really need to be honest with themselves about that. They got to be honest about, is this really what you want? But some people do. Some people want to go just limit the contact, and that's fine. But where I see people get in trouble is they think, I have to get them to understand my side. I have them to hold them accountable and understand and validate my perception of reality. But that's just what's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. And that's why we say they're not going to be able to have an emotionally healthy relationship with you. You have to accept this part. And I think, like with a lot of my coaching clients, this is what I see them struggle with the most. They really struggle to accept, yeah, they're going to be childish. They're going to be allergic to accountability. They're not going to be able to agree with you or validate your perception of reality. And it really drives people crazy, but they just can't. They're not going to. And until their actions prove otherwise, I would expect nothing different. And so if that's the case, you have to act accordingly. Usually we would say just go no contact, right? That's usually the best way to go, especially if it's a romantic relationship and there's no other ties. You're not married. You don't have kids. There's no lease, no nothing. You're free to go. And I tell some of my clients that are in that position, you don't know how lucky you are to be in a position where you can just walk away with no other strings. Because in those other scenarios, there's strings. In those other scenarios, you got to have a divorce, or you got to have to deal with a co-parenting scenario, or maybe you're financially dependent on one, like I said, but there's a lot of variables in those spots. And even when there is no strings, it's not going to be easy. It's still a trauma bond. It's still something, right? Trauma bonds are difficult to break. But when you have nothing holding you back, that's a blessing right there, let me tell you. No discussion means no resolution. That's right. Well, because one of my favorite definitions is an argument is to find out who is right. A discussion is to find out what is right. Narcissists are all about arguments. They want to be right, and they want you to agree with them. And if you don't, you're wrong. That's how they see it. Healthy partnerships, you can have the discussion, and that's how you work towards conflict resolution, problem solving, collaboration. That's how it rolls. Yeah. Post Malone circles, just word salad in circles. My favorite definition of word salad is when they say a whole lot of words, but say absolutely nothing. And it used to be the origins of word salad was what they used to call the unintelligible gibberish that someone who is schizophrenic would say. But it's since been adapted to being used for what narcissists say. And people will say politicians use word salad, right? So now it's expanded its use in the lexicon. But to go back to the acceptance part, you have to accept that if they're going to be allergic to accountability, you can't keep on hitting your head up against the wall, hoping they'll see it, hoping they'll understand, hoping they'll validate your perception of reality, and they'll finally say, oh yes, you're right. I was wrong. I take accountability, and I'm going to change my actions moving forward. If you're waiting for that, you're going to wait forever because it's not going to happen. Yeah. How's it go? Coming in circles, run away. But a lot of people, they get caught up on that part. They really want them to do that. And I think that's where seeing it more in a black and white way, this is where I'm for a black and white mentality, by the way. When in the beginning, you got to put them in that narcissist box. If you put them in the narcissist box, then you can act accordingly. But I think what happens is some people, they're very hesitant to put someone in the narcissist box, which I can understand to a point, because being put in that box, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because once you're in that box, you have to act accordingly. And then you have to do all of the things that we say on the channels here. You have to practice by the rules, whether it's gray rock, no contact, yellow rock, BIF, any of the other tools that we talk about, they're all necessary. Don't jade, justify, argue, defend, or explain. Don't get sucked into any emotional engagements with them. It's a big deal putting someone in the box. But once I put them in that penalty box, the narcissist penalty box, then I see them as that. And they don't get out of that box. And there's never been someone I have put in that box that has gotten out. I'll put it to you that way. And there's a few people I've put in that box. And some people, the trickiest ones are with family, right? Because it's not like always you can just cut them. because depending on what else is going on in the family and who they also talk to, you're going to overlap and you're going to have to see some of them sometimes, or else you're going to have to avoid every family function they'll ever be at. And hey, and that's where you got to make some tough choices. At a funeral, what are you going to do? Say a grandparent dies. Are you going to go to the funeral if that means breaking no contact? Well, these are the situations that come up. Narcissists love situations like that because they know it's a way to get around no contact. Because if you don't go to the funeral, that's going to be a different thing. But whatever people decide to do with that is what they decide to do with that. But in terms of the narcissist penalty box, for lack of a better word, once you're in there, you have to do all these steps. And you say, okay, they're not going to understand. They're not going to see where I'm coming from. And as Dr. Simon always says, it's not that they don't see, they disagree. It's not that they're not aware, they just don't care. And that's more the truth, if you ask me. And they're not going to validate you. And so you have to understand it. And when you understand it, you have to act differently. But people really struggle with that because I think they want to see them as a normal person. No, they're still a normal person. There's still some hope here in this connection. But no, there's really not. A lot of times there just really is no hope. You got to put them in the narcissist penalty box and you leave them there. And I understand for some people, especially with a parent, you don't want to put them in the narcissist penalty box. But all it does for your trouble is drives you crazy. And you go insane. And you lose your peace. Because you're expecting them to be something that they're not. When I interviewed Lisa Rogers, she had a great analogy for it. She said, expecting a narcissistic parent to love you is like expecting someone with no arms to be able to hug you. That's how it is with someone like that. And if you expect a narcissist to be accountable, that's like expecting the person with no arms to be able to hug you. They will just not. The trickiest part of it is when they do these love bombing hoovers, and this even happens in family dynamics too, where they try to get into your good graces and be nice for a little bit. But what usually, if not always, happens is if you don't give in and you don't give them what they want, it's just a matter of time before the mask slips again, and then they resort back to their whatever self. The only way I would ever see someone getting out of that box is if years and years and years and years and years go by, and maybe it's a family situation, and they haven't tried to go around my boundaries once, and they've respected me. Maybe in that case, I would think about it. But until that happens, I wouldn't even think about it. And so far, it's never happened. So everyone I've put in the box, they're in that box. I think that's going to be a new term I start using, the narcissist penalty box. And I think it's useful, though, because people might hesitate to put people in the narcissist penalty box, but they only cost themselves when they don't do that. They drive themselves nuts. But to me, it took me years and years and years to get to this level of thinking. It took me years to get to this level of awareness and education on it. So I can't expect people to understand this right away, especially people that are just becoming familiar with narcissism. That's not how it goes. Like, they're not going to get it that soon. And I understand that. It takes time. And now the other thing I was thinking about this today too, which overlaps with the accountability part, is narcissists force people to disrespect themselves. And how that happens is, since they're not going to hold themselves, they're not going to validate your perception of reality, hold themselves accountable, take accountability, they're always going to blame you. They're going to lie, use Darvo, flip the script. And whenever they've done something wrong, they're going to say, where is your accountability for my mistake? And if you were to overlook that and let them get away with that, you're disrespecting yourself. And no matter how it goes, there's just going to be some way they disrespect you. And there's two different ways that can look, right? Sometimes people don't even realize it's disrespect. They don't even notice it because maybe they had a narcissistic parent, and that was their initial trauma bond with a narcissistic parent. And how they saw that narcissistic parent's behaviors, that's what they expected love to look like. And then they grow up and they find someone just like that who is also disrespectful, who is also belittling and insulting, etc. So they don't even recognize it for what it is because they've just transferred trauma bonds from a narcissistic parent to their romantic partner. No, you're right. Like I said, once I've put people in the box, I've never had someone get out. Not on my watch, they haven't. And partially it's because I don't give them opportunities to, and rightfully so. And even from not giving them opportunities to, they still find a way to screw it up. They still find a way to try to reach around my boundaries or find a way to contact me, to ridicule me. That still happens too. So that's why they stay in the box. Keep them in the narcissist penalty box. I love that, actually. I just came up with that on the spot. But the other reason people don't or overlook the disrespect, they see it, but they have a story they tell themselves to stick around. And part of that's deering, defending, excusing, explaining, or rationalizing. But a lot of times the story is, well, they have a lot of potential, or they hold on to hope that the narcissist is going to change, or they'll think, well, I really felt great about this relationship in the beginning. I want them to be that person again. But I always say to people, if you have to hope they go back to how they were, or you have to hope they change into someone else and you're not happy with who they are in the present, that's a problem. Because once people get to that place, very seldomly do I ever see those work out. 99.9% it never changes. And so it's either misery or they rightfully leave. And don't get it twisted. I see people stay in misery. It doesn't mean it's going well, but they stay in misery. And that's the thing that can be confusing for other people is they see the relationship isn't broken up and they're like, oh, it must be a great relationship. They're still living together. They're still broken up. But that is absolutely not true. Things can be really dark behind closed doors. There can be all sorts of abuse, disrespect, and mistreatment. People on the outside just don't see it. So don't ever mistake a relationship that lasts a long time for a relationship that is healthy. That is not the same thing at all. But back to the disrespect part. So those people hold on to the hope. And maybe those people also, yeah, they're in a trauma bond. That part can't be downplayed. A trauma bond's a big thing. A trauma bond is just like a drug addiction. It's coercive control plus intermittent rewards. And the intermittent rewards is what makes it so addictive. That's the reason why gambling's so addictive, when you don't know the payout when it's going to come. But that process creates the trauma bond. And then from there, maybe they don't want to be alone. Maybe they're afraid to be single, or maybe they don't want to be lonely. And to the people in that spot, I would say, remember, there's no place lonelier than an abusive relationship. Don't ever forget that part either. But for whatever reason, people tell themselves something. For guys, what I hear guys tell themselves in these spots is they think they have to be Prince Charming. Oh, she needs me, they'll say. They'll say, she really needs me. She needs my help. I have to try to take care of her. And I would say, you can take care of and try to really provide positive masculine containment for someone who already meets a certain threshold. If they don't meet that certain threshold, you got to let them go. And what I mean by meeting a certain threshold is if they don't have a certain level of emotional maturity, if they can't respect you, so if they're going to be out of control, narcissist, or borderline, they don't meet that threshold anymore. And so there's no reason to be trying to hold on to hope or trying to take care of that person or trying to protect them from themselves. No, I would never recommend that. But that is something I hear some guys do. They'll say, oh, she really needs me. And then I think, and the other thing I see that happens too is sometimes when people stay with someone who's toxic, it gives them the opportunity to be the good guy or the good woman. Oh, I have my shit together and I'm trying to take care of this other person who is worse than me. But I would also say in that case, be very careful if you think you're really the good guy or the good woman, because a healthy person is not going to be in that position. If they're truly healthy, they're going to get out if they can. That's what I would say about that. Now, granted, people do get fooled, but I'm talking about the rationalizations that people make when they see it and they're in it. Those are the things to watch out for. Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. Any advice? I have narc mother that's using my GMA with dementia against me to control me. Well, how is she doing that? What's the scenario? Is the grandma in a retirement home? Is grandma living with mother? And how is she triangulating you? Is there something involved with a pension or, retirement, inheritance? That's usually what comes into play too, a lot of times in those cases. But in terms of the overlooking disrespect, radical self-respect is the antidote. Radical self-respect is the guardrails that protects people from being in relationships with narcissists, because it's impossible. It's impossible to practice radical self-respect and still be in a relationship with a narcissist. In fact, I've never heard a case where it is possible. And I'm not talking about a scenario where you're co-parenting and you can't go no contact. That's different. You can practice radical self-respect and be least amount of contact necessary. Yes. Now, when in terms of a full-blown relationship, though, with no holds barred, and you're actually trying to have emotional depth with someone, then it's just incongruent. It's not going to work. And somewhere along the line, and this is the other thing I see people do too, they'll overlook lies, or they'll give people very charitable interpretations. And I would say, hey, you got to stop that. You got to stop that deering. No more defending, excusing, explaining, rationalizing. Because would they do the same for you? Would they extend the same courtesy? I doubt it. Making you the caregiver. Basically, if I don't take care of her, mother, I'm exiled from the family, whatever that means. Who is her? And who are you in relation to them? So are you a son or a daughter? So I have a narc mother that's using your grandmom. Well, that's emotional blackmail is what it is. I mean, do you live on your own? She's trying to use your funds or something like that. She wants you to financially finance that, to finance the being taken care of. Either way, I wouldn't like that ultimatum one bit. And anyone who's going to give me an ultimatum like that, I'm going to walk away from. And I know I'm detached from your situation, so it's easier said than done for me. But I do it in my own life too. I have a very short leash, and you can make an argument my leash is too short. Because once someone goes into a box in my head where I don't like them anymore, you don't really get out of that box in my world. In my world, once you're in the box, you stay in the box. And, and there's an argument to be made that maybe that's something I should try to adjust one day. But so far, I'm liking that rule for me. Yeah, that's what I saw. But as I say, if it's an ultimatum, I wouldn't like that one bit. And it's like his mother is trying to shirk the responsibility. I mean, generally, like it's her own mother. If it's his grandmom, it's her mother. So if you want to go more in depth into that scenario, you can definitely set up like a coaching session too about that. We can go over it. That's really the best way to get the most specific help, is that these Q&As here are good for like other kinds of questions that are good for video worthy topics. I'm living with her to help, but now she's completely making this my responsibility. Yeah, so she's got you by the balls a little bit because you live there. That's the problem here. And that's a tough spot. That's a financially dependent spot. Now, I don't know if you're able to go on your own. Don't worry about the errors. If you're able to go on your own, maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing. But I think that's what happens. When people get stuck like that, they get put in some bad positions. And like I said, your mother, it sounds like she's just trying to avoid the responsibility. She doesn't want to deal with it. She's being selfish, it sounds like, for whatever reason. I don't know what she's got better going on. What is she doing with herself? How old is she? Yeah, it's a good word for it. So, I mean, I'm assuming what? Your mother's 60s to 70s, if I had to guess, maybe 50s. But yeah, that's not fun. It's not fun when those kinds of people in your family dynamic. Yeah, so she had you pretty young. So maybe she's got some emotional immaturity issues here. Is she narcissistic, borderline, emotionally immature? The other question would be, with the responsibilities on you, what does she expect you to do? Like stay home with her and be like her nurse? Like, what does she expect? That'd be an interesting thing. What she's expecting of you in the dynamic. But to go back to what I was saying before too, about the responsibility shirking or the disrespect thing too. If you practice radical self-respect, you'll be protected from those situations. And for some people, it's a big process learning how to do that in your life. When you learn how to do it, okay, now you can protect yourself. But the first learning how, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable. It's not going to be easy at first if you're not used to doing it. But once you get used to it, then you can start getting jiggy with it. And it's going to be easier for you to practice radical self-respect than it would be to continue disrespecting yourself. And you get to a point where what happens is you wouldn't even dream of it. That's how it is for me now. All these situations that I hear my clients talk to me about and other people as well, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't even dream of it. I wouldn't even dream of putting up with a situation like that. And it's possible to get to that place. It's just, it takes some practice. And it takes some belief in yourself too. You got it, my man. I'll put my email in the chat here. And also on some of my other videos in the community section of YouTube here, I have all the my link tree where you can find everything about my contact information. My course for clarity. It's only $9.99. My course for clarity. The sessions, like I have 30-minute and 60-minute sessions. So all that's pretty cool too. But if you find someone who's avoiding accountability like that, they just force you. They force you to disrespect yourself. And even lies, even without someone being a narcissist, if they lie to you, to me, that's a deal breaker too. Once someone lies to me, I'd have a really hard time trusting them. And if there's no trust, you got nothing. If a relationship doesn't have trust, there is no foundation. One of the most important building blocks is trust. You have to build that foundation with building blocks of trust. If you don't have that, you don't got a thing. But again, some people want to overlook that. They want to overlook a lie. They want to overlook, like another example would be, you catch your partner or the person you're dating talking to someone, dating, or maybe even cheating and hooking up. And then you find it out and they instantly flip it back onto you and they blame you for bringing up the past, or they blame you for something. And whatever it is, even though it's something they did wrong, it's still somehow your fault. And if that ever happens, that's probably the brightest of red flags you could ever get. You see that, you got to get out of there, Jack. because there's just no healthy relationship to be had. It's not going to happen. And it sounds silly, but those things absolutely happen. I have clients who tell me about it all the time. Yep, I saw this person was texting another person that they said they weren't. I called it out and they blamed me. Like, oh, next. Don't deal with that. Or if you catch them cheating, they'll get mad at you or block you or something like that for finding out. And if they do that, they've done you a favor. If they block you because you've called them out, and that's happened to me before in romantic relationships and in family relationships, but if all it took was to bring something up and then they lose it like that, oh, well, now they've done you a favor. Slam the door shut behind them and don't let them back in. That's my recommendation for that scenario. And you just got to keep that door shut, though, because sometimes people, their resilience wavers and they start, the trauma bond comes back into their head and they get some euphoric recall is what they call it, when you start remembering the good times. And for guys, a lot of times, I think sex gets in the way for them, especially if it's an attractive woman. Then all of a sudden they catch themselves daydreaming about the love bombing phase and all the wild, fun sex and stuff. And then when they're lonely, if they're not dating someone else, they're like, oh, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I can go back around and go for another round. It's like, well, I would do that at your own peril. I catch myself realizing all this, but then I'm like, she's going to die one day. I'm going to feel bad. Let me try to make this work. Dumb, I know, but since it's my mom, it's a little touchier than an ex-girlfriend. Yeah, family relationships will certainly be more complicated. How old is grandmom? I mean, here's what I would say also. Excluding your mother from the scenario, if it was completely up to you what you wanted to do, and maybe your mom didn't even exist, like what would you do then? What do you think the right thing to do in the scenario would be? And that's a question perhaps to see it. Like, maybe it does involve you taking like more of the responsibility, regardless of what your mother says, though. Like, I wouldn't do it because of what your mother says in any way. But there might be a case for, there's a case for you stepping up in some way. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know for sure, right? I don't know all the information, so it's hard for me to say. But there could be an element of that in there. Because you're right. I mean, grandmother, I don't know how your relationship was with your grandmother. Is she a healthy person? Or was she something else going on with her? Or is the issue just your mother? Yes, narcissistic injuries. I mean, anytime you call them out for something they absolutely did, a narcissistic injury alley, they call it. And then they're going to lose it, become furious, call you names. And the wild part about that is they think they can treat you however they want. Oh, they'll ghost for days. They'll call you names. They'll belittle you, tell you how to live, tell you everything you're doing wrong, criticize you. And if you do one of those things back to them, they lose their minds. And once someone does that, I'm done. I'm out. Gone, baby, gone. I mean, the truth can hurt everyone, right? The truth, but it is the truth. Mature people, emotionally mature people with character, even if the truth hurts, they're going to say, okay, I admit this is the truth. I have to take care of this. There's something I got to do. Narcissists don't really have that button. They just don't do it. I mean, his mother is manipulating him. I don't know where the inheritance comes into play, though. Like, oh, I see. Yeah. That could be, if there is an inheritance involved. Yeah, that's snaky. That's snaky of her mother to be doing that. I'd leave 100%. My GMA needs to be in a home around nurses, as hard as that sounds. Yeah, I mean, and that's a reasonable way to see it then, because you're not a hospice nurse. Like, that's a full-time job. Women or anyone in that dynamic, that's a full-time job taking care of someone like that. I mean, I bet your mother's not even capable of doing that either. But the fact, like I said, I would have a problem with her doing that emotional blackmail thing and trying to get you out of there. That's awful. For a mother to be doing that to their son, disrespect. It's disrespect, belittling. It's absurd. And it's just like, it's your mother, and she's treating you like you're an enemy or something. Yeah, you got it, my man. What's your name so I know who it is? Or you just tell me it's Purple Haze when you contact. Yeah. It should be the mother's responsibility to handle this stuff, right? Whether it's getting her in a home or having like a come-in nurse, because that happens too, right? You have the nurses come into the home. I mean, and finances play a big part in this too. Not everyone's able to get all of the care they need because of finances, insurance. Also, there's so many things that come into play. But I would not like it one bit if my mother did that. That would not fly. I wouldn't do well with that. That's the kind of thing that would make me split on someone. And I might not even be physically gone from them, but emotionally, I'll check out. If someone does that to me, I'm checked out. And the relationship is done. Because there's certain things to me you just don't come back from. And like I said, my trigger finger with this might be sensitive, but once someone does something to me that gives me a bad enough, unpleasant feeling, I'm like, no, I'm just done. I'm done. Zach Morris, like from Saved by the Bell? It's hilarious your name is Zach Morris. I have a friend who's going out with a guy named Morris, and I always call him Zach Morris, and I always have a joke with her about, it's all right when you're saved by the bell. That's hysterical. Small world. There's so many synchronicities going on. Now, George, I think I saw you in another comment, I think I forget what video you commented on, but I think I told you. I think, if it's the same person. Exactly. And everyone's favorite crush, Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Kelly Kapowski. I was a big Kelly Kapowski fan. Same with Melanie from Hey Dude. Thank you, George. Let me know what other kind of topics you'd like to see me go over. I'll be going, if you know Marcella from Beyond the Bruise, I'll be talking to her on Tuesday. And probably soon enough, I'll be talking to Dr. Salerno again. But I'm trying to do at least freaking 2 interviews a week here. But not everyone cooperates as a guest. And some people, because here's the thing, I'll give you a little inside scoop here. When you do YouTube, it's all about the power game. So you really see the power game in full force. And what I mean by that is, depending on your level of power, like the more views you get, the more subscribers you have, people treat you differently. Now, I've got the most followers on Facebook, followed by Instagram, followed by TikTok, followed by YouTube. I have the least on YouTube, but I feel like I have the most loyal community on YouTube. Probably YouTube and Facebook are my 2 loyal communities, which I think is pretty cool. Yes. Yes, it does. And so, for example, there's people I reached out to, this woman who used to be a high-end escort. And then you start hearing the things that you hear in the dating world, right? You'll hear shit like, oh, it's a bad thunderstorm. I can't do the interview because there's a bad storm. We might lose internet connection. I'm like, that's like the dating world equivalent of, I have a tummy ache. So I'm like, but it's the same thing, right? Whether the girl flakes on you on a date and says, oh, I don't feel well, or my grandmother has the flu and I can't make it on our date. It's funny how that works, right? Well, the same kind of nonsense, you hear that too when you're trying to interview people. They'll say, oh no, I've got a couple of the storms excuses recently. Oh no, there's a lightning storm and I'm afraid of my internet connection. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, if there was someone that they really respected and someone that had way more power than me, I guarantee you they wouldn't be saying that shit. That's just how it goes. Yes, you are, Alex. There you are. Yes. That's what they want. But it's just the power game, right? And so, like, I would love to get to a place where, like, my YouTube income from doing interviews and getting money from AdSense, that's all I needed. But as it is, I'm nowhere really close to it. It's a lot of work. But I would love to do interviews and talk about all the narcissism stuff and then add in some current events, dating world stuff, all that. Maybe even some political stuff. Oh, that's so polarizing. I don't know. No, she would not do Chris Brown that way. And that's the point, though. Like, whenever guys are in the dating world, I would say to them, like, oh, she wouldn't treat this freaking dude that she really wanted like this. And they'll lie and say, oh, yes, I would. Like, no, you would not. If it was someone you really were into, the president, someone, all of a sudden, they have all sorts of time now. All of a sudden, they're available to do anything. They'll swim across the ocean to see you. But if they think they're in a position that they're better than you or they're just not into you, if it's dating, you'll hear the trivialist of excuses at that point. Cloud is kidding. That's right. You know, you're the second person to say the old Mercury retrograde, because someone was talking about that in terms of Andy, what's his face, Andy Byron and Kristen Cavett in the Coldplay concert. They said, welcome to Mercury retrograde. Well, it's a different skill set, the interviews, right? I think I'm pretty good at interviews, and I think in terms of the money making, interviews do better because people watch them for longer. Like, I'm able to build the connection more with YouTube lives. You're very correct about that. And the solo vids, they're the most educational. But somewhere in there, I got to incorporate the business side of it too, because if you don't do that, then you're just not able to continue. Like, you're not going to be able to do it. So you have to play the game. You have to play the balancing act there. That's the capitalist world for you, the profit world. You have to. Or else it's that, or I have to go back to doing sales or something. And if I go back to doing sales, now all of a sudden I have way less time to do this. So you see the conundrum that happens. It's where I want to do this because this is my purpose. It's my mission to help people with radical self-respect, to do the interviews, and to help people with dating, positive masculine containment. That's my mission. My purpose is to do that. But if I have to dick around and do some sales nonsense just for money, now I'm taken away from my purpose. And if I can go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, I would say the only thing with mindset is, like, I'm really big into mindset, is you got to be careful if you believe in yourself too much, if you lull yourself to sleep and you don't do the footsteps, the footwork. You got to make sure you do the action. So yeah, believe in yourself, of course, but don't believe in yourself so much that you think things are going to work out just via magic. No, that's not going to be. Act as if it won't work out unless you work your ass off. That's a better way to see it. And so that's one of the sneaky things that can happen. If you have a good mindset, you'll think, oh, it'll work out. I'm not going to worry about it. I know it's going to work out. Well, when you think of it like that, that's a dangerous way to see it, because you can lull yourself into complacency. Yeah, and that's I have done that in the past, and it's not good. I was telling a friend of mine, Tess, who she's going to do an interview with me here soon too. But I was telling her that because she's like 10 years younger than me, and she's kind of coming down the same path as me. And I said to her, just make sure that you don't lull yourself to sleep with a good mindset. You have to act as if, no, you have to. It's the same thing with faith. Like, people who believe in a higher power or something like that, they'll think, oh, it's just going to work out somehow, some way. It's like, well, the dangerous part of that is there's some magical thinking in there. Like, you got to make sure the practical footsteps are in order. It's like that fable of the guy that was going to drown in a flood, and multiple people tried to save him, and he said, no, God's going to save me. And then he drowns, and he asks God, why didn't you save me? And he said, I freaking did send 2 people. You just said no. So it's a similar thing. It's a similar concept that you can't lull yourself. Yes. Execution. You got to act as if that things aren't going to work out unless you do everything in your power. So that's where I am with it now. It's like, all right, I got to do everything. There's nothing I can take for granted anymore. And I've been annoyed recently at myself too, because I got into crypto 7 years ago in 2018. My first crypto score, for lack of a better word, I bet on the Patriots to win the Super Bowl at halftime of the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. And the Patriots were down 21-3. And I bet $100 to win 1,000 that they would win. And of course they won. And so I won $1,000. And it said, we can pay you in cash in 6 months, or we can pay you in Bitcoin tomorrow. And this was $1,000, which was 1 Bitcoin back then. And I didn't know what Bitcoin was. I was like, what the hell is this? 1 Bitcoin. And so I had 1 Bitcoin. It was like $900. And it went down to like 700, 800. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I can't deal with this. And the guy who told me how to do it, I was like, I'm getting rid of this. I'm going to sell it to you. So I sold him my 1 Bitcoin for like $900. And now that 1 Bitcoin would be worth $117,000. And I got back into crypto after that, but I blundered because I got more involved in altcoins. And here's the thing. It's so easy to see now because you look back and you see how it turned out. So clearly now it's like, yeah, a lot of altcoins were a bad bet. They still had a good shot in 2020. Many did. But knowing what I know now, it'd be like, dude, just put your money in Bitcoin and Ethereum, the end. And if I would have done that, I'd probably be a millionaire today. But in fact, I am not a millionaire today. Yep, that's me. In my book, I'm not as bad as the 13 Bitcoin pizza dude, but I sold a Bitcoin for $1,000 7 years ago. And that's really been bothering me recently. It's been bothering me because, I had a fair chunk of change in there for a while, but now that I've gotten more popular on social media, I've been trying to make this work, but I've done it at the detriment to other bullshit jobs. So I would do all these other jobs because I used to be obsessed with getting money into crypto, but I kind of stopped doing that because I was trying to cultivate my social media here. But now push comes to shove. It's like, all right, now I'm at the position though, where I got to make it happen. And I wish I should have at a minimum, just a couple $100,000 sitting there at minimum, but I don't. And so that pisses me off that I let these opportunities slip through my fingers. And I let something Alex Hermosi said get to me too. I'm crying with you, bro. I had 2 Bitcoin in 2014. Yeah. So you know how it is. 2000. I make fun of my little brother. He learned about it on the Joe Rogan Experience in freaking 2012 or something. And he didn't tell me about it. And he said to himself, no, Bitcoin's stupid. And then he didn't do anything. And then I got him involved in altcoins like VeChain. And VeChain did have a good run in 2020, but VeChain's not doing very good anymore. But that hurts. Some of the most pain I've felt is when I've made a bad trade and then the coin skyrockets later. That's a bad pain, man. That's a bad pain. But what I was going to say about Alex Hermosi is he would say you invest in the S&P 500, not the S&P 500. And I said to myself, yeah, he's right. I should invest in me. Why am I outsourcing my money-making possibilities to a crypto coin, to Bitcoin? And so I convinced myself to not do it that way. But the flip side of that coin is you want to bet on yourself. But for some people, the S&P 500 is going to outperform the S&P 500. And that's the part he doesn't talk about. For some people, it will outperform it. So what do you do then? But you don't know. No one's going to think they're the person. Oh, yeah. the S&P 500 is going to outperform me if I invest in myself, well, I mean, we should all be investing in ourselves, right? Even either way, whatever our skill sets are, we still got to do that. So that's been what's on my mind recently. For the last week or two, it's been bothering me. It's been bothering me the last week or two. Yeah. And that's why Alex Hormozy says it's the S in me. S in me 500. I mean, if I were to ask Alex Hormozy, though, I would say, well, what did you do? He's a salesman, is basically what he is. He has acquisition, whatever it is. And he was big into gym sales stuff. And then he started from that. And then a lot of those entrepreneur stories, there's gaps in the story, right? So you saw him sleeping in the gym, and then it like skips stuff. And then before you know it, oh, all of a sudden I got $100 million in the bank. Well, how the hell did that happen? Yeah, we can definitely do that. Maybe that'd be best in the next stream because this one's already 50 minutes deep. And the people probably won't watch this far unless they're already here. But you never know. Maybe people will. I don't know. Once these streams are over, I don't know how long people watch them. People do watch these more now, I think, even than my solo vids. But I can go over the scapegoat role. I can do a whole dysfunctional family breakdown video. The black sheep, lost child, clown, golden child. We can go over all of that. Narcissistic parents, borderline parents, emotionally immature parents, undiagnosed autism parents, CPTSD parents, drug and alcohol problem parents, hyper stressed parents. There's all sorts. I mean, sometimes it's not even pathology that's the problem. It's people just stressed from being poor. Now, does that really make it better for the kids? No. The cause doesn't matter. Like they're still getting the bad treatment, right? But it's tough. It can be tough for families out there when they're struggling financially. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, for people in America now, it's just the world is rough. The world is expensive. We're not in a world anymore where just one person can work and then a mother stays home. We're not in that era anymore. We're in an era of two parents work. Two parents work, kids in daycare, school turns into their daycare. Maybe they're a latchkey kid. Maybe they do some sort of after school activity. I don't know. But that's the world today. And like the parents that I know, for the very most part, they really only see their kids like first thing in the morning and then after they come home from work. I'll be looking forward to it, man. I'll be keeping my eyes open for you. And I'll say, yeah, Zach Morris, Zach and Jesse and Kelly Kapowski. And what was the woman's name? The woman who was in striptease or strip whatever, showgirls. The hell was her name? I can't remember. But it was a pleasure having you here. Gave me some things to talk about too with your mother and grandmother. Yes. Everyone is addicted to their phone these days. That's a shame. I mean, granted, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of being addicted to my phone too, for that matter. Now, my excuse is, and this is just an excuse, the excuse is I get paid from social media. So whether it's YouTube, TikTok, or Facebook, and then cultivating coaching clients, it's my job to be on social media. So in a way, it's convenient, but in a way also, it's very hard to put it down because your office place is right here. My office place is here always. Is that her name? Stacy? Is it? I can't believe I don't remember. And Turtle and Screech. And Mr. Belding. You can't forget Mr. Belding. We also do a top 5 80s and 90s principles. Boy Meets World, Saved by the Bell, Simpsons, Doug. That'd be classic. Oh, good. I'm glad you think so. Energized, healing, and fitness. I don't think I've seen you around here before. Shorts, but it's good to have you here. And so, yeah, I'm definitely addicted to my phone. And I think it hijacks people's amygdala. And that's a problem. And we don't even realize what it's going to do to us. That's the other thing. We don't know. We don't know what this is doing to our brains. We don't know what this is doing to how we socially interact with people. And I interviewed my 9th grade English teacher, Jay Black. He's a comedian now. We were having a back and forth with it. You can watch this video. And he's, I guess you would call him like a left of center comedian. And so we were kind of disagreeing on things because one of my superpowers is I'll disagree with everybody when it comes to politics, because I'm sometimes in the middle, sometimes right, sometimes left. It just depends. And he was saying, no, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Our phones and social media, humans evolve. And I said, dude, this is the first time that we've had anything like this. This is so different than any of the previous upgrades and changes that we have no idea. We don't know what it's going to do. It's so new. We don't know yet. We just don't know yet. Doug. I always remember Doug and all of his outfits were the same, right? He had the same outfits. Him and Patty Mayonnaise and Skeeter and Roger Klotz. It's taking away our natural ability to be somewhat telepathic. Yeah, I would say so. I think I would like to think I still have my gifts and things, but I also can't deny distraction is absolutely a thing, and not being as present in the world. You know, I used to go on more adventures, like physical adventures to the beach or to the city. And granted, sometimes that stuff would involve like drinking and whatever. And so that has its own set of problems, right? But I haven't been doing that. And part of that's getting older, right? Just don't feel like it anymore. But the phone takes up hobbies. And I'd like to be able to keep on reading and doing whatever. Reading is a big thing for me. Schools in Canada are now banning the cell phones. I mean, it's probably a good thing, honestly. And then I bet you the parents would backlash and say, well, what if there's an emergency at school? What if there's some sort of school shooting thing going on? It's like, well, it makes you think, how the hell did we ever live without them? I'm 40 years old. I lived 20 something years of my life without them, and we did. We survived. Right now, I'm finishing my friend Cece's book, Vibin' with Cece. I don't know if you know her, but she's got a great energy. I interviewed her once on this channel. Now, the book she wrote is for women. It's called Show Up As Her. But she thinks a lot like me, Cece. So I'm reading it. I'm like, yeah, this freaking, she thinks a lot like me. And she has a word for it now. She goes, a bitch. But the way she says bitch, it is babe in total connection with herself. So it's an empowering way to say bitch, I guess. But she's a she's a cool girl. She's a cool girl. You want to check out that interview I did with her. But I'm reading that, and I'm reading this other book, the third book in the Kite Runner series. There's Kite Runner, another book, and then this book, Something Mountains, I think it is. But I try to go back and forth between fiction and nonfiction, because I think fiction, you can learn things from fiction that you just can't from nonfiction. But I read East of Eden earlier this year. Before that, I read a couple of nonfiction books, Lewis Howes's Make Money Easy. And then I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's 7 Useful Tools, which was a good one. Yeah. So what's next? I'm thinking about rereading Hearts in Atlantis again. And for those who don't know, that's what that's from. Love plus peace equals information. That's from a Hearts in Atlantis book. And the woman, I think her name's Lucy, but she's always asking me to explain my tattoos. So this is Oscar Schindler here from Schindler's List. I got him because I liked the ladies back in the day, and I like to really booze. But I also thought I liked him because despite all of that, he still did a good thing to try to help people. So he had his vices and he wasn't a perfect person, but he did save 1,200 people from dying in the Holocaust. So to me, that was a pretty cool person. I would argue to say I might be the only person in the world with an Oscar Schindler tattoo. And then we got, this is Roland in the Dark Tower here. And the Dark Tower, to me, represents your mission and purpose in life. If anyone knows the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, to me, that's the meat and potatoes of his whole career. And everything kind of branches out from there. But it's a 7-book series. It took him 25 years to write. And Roland was one of his best characters. And I was so disappointed, though, when they made the Dark Tower movie with Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. They made it like a comic book movie. And that's not what it was supposed to be. If they would have made the Dark Tower series like the first 3 Lord of the Rings, that would have been amazing. But they didn't. And so they ruined it. But that's Roland the Dark Tower there. This is the view from a ball turret gunner shooting at a Messerschmitt, an ME 109, over the fields of France there. You see the checkered fields. But that's firing there. Because I'm a big World War II guy. I like watching Dr. Mark Felton, if you know who that is. And then I have a Wizard's Tower. Wizard's Tower up there. How to get this fucking... But that's like the Wizard's Tower there. I got a headless horseman. And then like a Grim Reaper walking through a cemetery. And then a sleeping bee. Because there's a jazz song called A Sleeping Bee. When you're truly in love, you're so at peace with the world that a bee would sleep in the palm of your hand. And then GSD, Get Shit Done. My first one was an Oscar Wilde quote. All saints have a past, all sinners have a future. I don't even remember I have all or every. I think it's all. That's a good book. I like it. The person whoever the author is, that's a good one. It's an emotional book. He's a good author, that guy. I think good fiction authors are extremely hard to come by now. But he's a good one. And so he has a 3-part series. They're not even connected, so I shouldn't call it a series. But there's that one, another one, Flags. What the frick is... I can't remember the frickin' names. Roland's a good name. But it was so disappointing how they ruined the Dark Tower movie. I don't think people have the attention span for Lord of the Rings anymore. Like, there was no social media back then during those first 3. But even so... people had the attention span for a Game of Thrones 6 seasons. Yeah, I didn't even see it. I refused to see it because I just knew it was going to be terrible. Because it wasn't even really the actor's fault. I mean, Idris Elba is great in The Wire. Matthew McConaughey is great in other things. He's great in Dallas Buyers Club. He's classic in Dazed and Confused. What else are they in? I can't even remember what Matthew McConaughey's even in off the top of my head. Oh, he was great in True Detective, of course. Classic show. First season. Yeah, I told you, a lot of things I could be talking about here on this channel. All over the place. History, movies, dating, politics, current events. There's no limits. There's no limits to what the wizard knows, you know. Thank you. There was a time when I was really had a lot of anxiety and insecure. Like, I would say for me, it started more from a self-loathing than it did from a self-love, if I had to guess. And I wanted to be different. I wanted to have something that gave me more of an edge. Now, I haven't gotten any tattoos for years, but I already stick out enough, I think, with what I already have done. And I don't regret them, but I also fully acknowledge the motivation. Like, I wanted to be different than the rest. Like, just being plain skinned seemed boring for me. And ironically enough, I didn't think that way of other people. Like, if other people had tattoos, I wouldn't care. But for me, I was just repulsed with myself. It was the script that was the problem. Well, because they tried to condense it. Like, I've read all 7 of the books. So the 7 of the books, the first one's The Dark Tower. And it starts with Roland. Well, how does it go? The man in black crosses the desert, and then Roland followed. Great book. Great start. And then there's the drawing of the 3, the wastelands, the wizard in glass, wolves of the Cala, songs of Susanna, and then the final one is the Dark Tower series. And I was telling my friend last night that the problem with Stephen King to me is he is amazing at beginnings. He is amazing at middles, but I don't like his endings. He doesn't know how to end a book. And that's the thing with the Dark Tower series, that he got away with it because the book ended, but the story wasn't over, right? So he's able to keep on leaving it open-ended, open-ended, open-ended until the 7th one. And then, true to form, that didn't end well either. What do you think? How do you overcome fear of posting online? Well, you have a fear of posting online? I guess I would examine with you where the fear is coming from. Are you afraid they're going to judge you? Because some people will. But it becomes an opportunity for you to work on how you handle it. And granted, some of it's a muscle you build. The more you deal with it, you get desensitized. But in the beginning, you're more sensitive in the beginning. And then something else happens though too. When you get bigger, so Facebook is the place I'm the biggest. Jared Mello on Facebook. And as you get bigger, people don't mess with you in the same ways anymore either. When you're smaller, people are way more likely to give you some grief and disagree. Now you can still always get hate regardless of how big you are, right? That can happen too, but it just depends. And I would say, what do you want to post about? Like, is there a certain topic you want to post about? Yeah. And that's how he got away with it though. So the first 6 books of that series, the book was over, but the story wasn't. So it still had a good flow. So those first, even though they went off the rails in some of the books, like the Song of Susanna book, that was a little off the rails. But Wolves of Cala, I still will never not think of Elton John's Someone Saved My Life Tonight. Whenever I hear that song, I think of Wolves of the Cala, because the cool part about the Dark Tower series is he interlaps, or what the hell is the word for it? Overlaps people from other stories into that story. So Father Callahan is in Salem's Lot, but he makes a guest appearance in Wolves of the Cala. And then there's this big reference to Someone Saved My Life Tonight by Elton John and Wolves of the Cala. So whenever I hear that song, I think of that book. Dune. Yes. Do not fear, because fear is the mind killer. Or as John Milton said, the mind can make a heaven out of hell and a hell out of heaven. A lot of good quotes out there. Or from, yes. And that is it's a Peter Straub co-author, right? If my memory serves me correctly. Where's the other one? Yeah, I'm gonna reread Hearts in Atlantis again. And I read The Dome, JFK, Salem's Lot, Christine, The Shining. The Shining was a really good book too. Yeah, Pazam. I liked it. Or V for Vendetta. By the power of truth, I, while living, have conquered the universe. Who said that? Faust. Faust made a deal with the devil. Yeah, it gave me a couple chuckles. The Dome. That was a good book too. Do you realize how long ago that was now? The Dome was, I think I was 25 or 26. That's 15 years ago. Can you believe it? But Stephen King has a dark humor a lot of time. And I reread The Stand. And again, The Stand's a great book too. And I really like the beginning. I really like the middle. I don't like the last 25 pages. I don't like how he ended it. I also didn't like how easily the protagonist lost. Like, who the hell was it? Was he Randall Flagg? So, like, how Randall Flagg and his little sidekick dude, the hell was his name? I can't remember. But they just got defeated so easily with the trash can man bringing back the nuclear bomb. It's like, I don't know. I mean, they just lose their edge. They lost their edge. And the way that older dude was able to like really get under their skin in the prison cell, I'm like, something about it just wasn't for me. I didn't like it. But it was the first time I read the book for 20 years. Christine, I did see some of the movie Christine, but I remember reading the book. And that was a good book too, with Arnie. Arnie, the nerdy dude, him, and then the blondie. The man in black. And Matthew McConaughey was not necessarily the right choice for Man in Black. If they wanted to do it right, you get a director such as Paul Thomas Anderson. You get a Paul Thomas Anderson or a Peter Jackson, and you get some good actors in there. Get a freaking Daniel Day-Lewis. Get the dude from No Country for Old Men. Right? You get these guys in there. The hell is Javier Bardem? He would have been a good Man in Black, perhaps. Like Matthew McConaughey, I just don't see him in the role. Who? Matthew McConaughey? Yeah, I mean he is corny sometimes. But he wasn't too corny in Dallas Buyers Club. I thought he was pretty good in that. And I thought he was pretty good in True Detective too. Outside of that, I don't know what he's done. I know he's written a book called Green Lights, which I have not read, but I might read it because, I mean, successful people leave clues outside of the things that they were just lucky to get. So if like someone's success is massively because of how they look, you got to take what they say with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean everything that they say is wrong, but you still got to take it with a grain of salt, because if you don't have that, you're not going to have the same experience he does. Now, he might still have other lessons for you in other ways, but it's still going to be different. Oh. Yeah, he just doesn't know how to end a book. He just doesn't, he doesn't know how to pull it all together for some reason. And it's just, to me, it always seems disjointed and forced. But the beginnings and middles, to me, they're magical. Like they're magical things that just kind of flow off the page. But at the ends, they just don't end properly, in my opinion, a lot of times. And people don't know this, but Stand By Me is a Stephen King book. The Body is what it was called in different seasons. Shawshank Redemption, Stephen King. Apt Pupil, with Gandalf as the Nazi, Stephen King. And then there's another book in there about a homeless guy, a guy who pretends to be homeless and makes a fortune doing it. And then Hearts in Atlantis is similar to different seasons, because I wouldn't necessarily call them horror, but they're not his normal. And even Dark Tower wasn't his normal. That was more of an adventure than it was horror. Salem's Lot's like more of a horror, but none of his books ever scared me, though. That's the thing. Like, I never understood why people thought he was scary. I never got that. But some people are terrified by his books. Some people are terrified of The Shining. And I could see, as a woman, maybe if your husband goes crazy and you're by yourself with them, yeah, I can see how that could be scary. But as a guy, I didn't get the scare part of that. If anything, I related to more of Jack Torrance and his thoughts about drinking, because I used to be a boozer back in the day. It's one of the reasons I got on the path I'm on. But as he was writing about the boozer, I know Stephen King was talking about himself too, because Stephen King also used to be a boozer. And Stephen King's been sober for years now, sober clean for years. But how he would write about that was spot on. The way he would think about it, like staying sober one day at a time, and how he was a teacher, and he was good in the mornings, good in the afternoons, but then darkness must fall. And then when darkness must fall, then he wanted to drink. And he would have his drinking buddies, and they would call the martinis Martians. And Jack Torrance, his friend, would say, "The Martians have landed." And then that would be their thing. They'd be out and about drinking and whatever. Wild times. Wild times. But I'm going to reread Hearts in Atlantis, though, like I said. I think that would be a good book. But we've gone off the beaten path here again. I like going off the beaten path, though. I think I like talking about other things besides just narcissism sometimes. Because I talk about narcissism all day, every day. And not all day, every day. But there's other things to talk about, too. But all right. I'm getting tired here myself. But if you have any questions out there, let me know. But if not, I wind this down here. And if you ever have any good book recommendations, let me know. I'm always down for a good book recommendation. I'll give you another one, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. That's a good one. And if you read that book, there's almost verbatim some of the lines from Metallica's For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is pretty wild to see when you listen to that song. And then you read that book, you're like, oh, that's exactly what he said in the song. All right. Like I said, I'm getting tired now. But we talked about how narcissists are allergic to accountability and how narcissists force you to disrespect yourself when you're with them. And it's because they lie. It's because they cheat. It's because they refuse to take accountability, and they always blame you. And there's just no way. There's no way to deal with them in a healthy manner. They force you to. And if you don't cave in, they're just going to cause more and more of a headache. And this is why all we say to usually do is to go no contact. And if you can't, then you got to use some of the other tools that we talk about. What are the tools that we talk about? Well, I came up with another video today about that, the 4 ways to disempower them. One's the clown music. Maybe you want to say Curb Your Enthusiasm music. You picture that while you're talking or texting with them. A commenter said a couple ideas I like too, which was, which I can't remember what he said now. Oh, SpongeBob was one of them. Imagine them as SpongeBob, or there was another one too. But the point is you disempower them by doing that. Another way to do the same thing, emotional 4-year-old or malfunctioning robot. Another way is the Charlie Brown teacher voice, wop, 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 wop. All of it is just to disempower them because you don't want to give them any more power than they already have. The more powerful they are, the more they hurt people. But the more you diminish them, the more you disempower them in your mind, then you win. Because now they can't hurt you anymore. And if they can't hurt you, you're in a good spot. Well, all right. I think that's all, though, for tonight. Because I'm running out of steam. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in here. I'm trying to go live 2 to 3 times a week at least, if not more. What I'm doing is I'm taking some of the shorts that I make and then trying to extend on the topics from the shorts into this. And we'll see how this goes. But thanks for watching, everyone. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Like the video if you liked it. Share this video with someone you think might benefit. Comment below after the video is posted too. Because the live comments, they don't show up on the thing. But comments posted after will. You got it, Ellie. Till next time. And nice having you here, Energized Healing and Fitness. Alex, nice to have you here too. George, Purple Haze, everyone else who is here, I appreciate you. Till next time.